Hello and welcome to Decoding the New Economy. Today I'm joined by Ross Mason, founder of Mulesoft, and we're going to talk about taking some of the donkey work out of making programs work together. Ross, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Now, first of all, let's kick off with what Mulesoft do.
Yeah, so we actually started life helping companies connect their on-premise systems together.
Right.
And that in itself was a big challenge. And then what's happened over the last 4 years is really there's a new state of the enterprise, the new enterprise essentially, where there's many more applications, there's many more partners, and there's many more ways of engaging with consumers.
Yeah.
That's forcing a lot of the connectivity requirements outside of the data center. And organizations are trying to figure out how do they connect their assets on premise to these new channels in cloud and these new channels on mobile devices through applications to engage their consumers.
Yeah. Now, you came up with the idea out of being frustrated with all the work involved in putting together this data.
Yeah, I mean, originally when I started, it was just connecting big heavy systems in the back office, and that was very painful work. Donkey work as I called it. And the point of Mule was really to build a framework for developers to connect those systems in a reliable, repeatable, well-architected way and do it more efficiently.
Yeah. Yep. So you seem to time that very, very well with the explosion of open data, apps and so on. So suddenly the APIs became a very big thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of luck there, of course. But yes, I mean, the timing is sort of perfect in the market because there is so much more of everything.
Yeah.
And interestingly, what's also happened is, 5 years ago, integrating applications was really a necessary evil that companies had to do just to make things work.
Yeah.
That wasn't where they saw the value. And what's changed is integration has now become this competitive advantage. And the advantage is, how do I compose my applications, my data, and my resources in ways that give me advantage over the competition, allow me to bring products to market quicker, allow me to engage my consumers in the way they want to be engaged. And that's really the role of integration now, is this competitive advantage in this landscape.
So what sort of software do you integrate?
Honestly, everything. I mean, everything from AS400 mainframe systems that the retail systems have and the airlines, Oracle, SAP, big on-premise applications, and PeopleSoft and those guys.
Yeah.
Lots of custom things, lots of traditional databases, lots of big data, of course, and now increasingly a lot more SaaS applications. So Salesforce and Workday would be the big two.
Yeah.
And increasingly helping companies connect the divide between their on-premise data and mobile devices that are held by their consumers or workforce.
Right. So, and a lot of mobility this must tie into.
Yeah. So a lot of what's driving our customers today is mobility strategies. So figuring out how to unlock their assets and deliver it to applications on the consumer device that they can engage with whoever they care about, usually their consumer.
Yeah. And how do you see, because it seems to me it's a classic big data play as well, as you're helping push that data around the different applications there.
Yeah, so amazingly there's a lot more data now. So there's more data because we're tracking things in real time on the devices themselves.
Yeah.
There's more data because I think we're just getting more efficient at tracking everything that happens just in case we need it. Our role in the big data realm is really to do two things. One, help feed that data into the big data repositories that occur in these organizations, but also to siphon out valuable pieces of data that go in. So we're used on either side of the big data equation.
Yeah. Now, to use another IT buzzword, we've got the Internet of Things as well.
Okay,
and we've got all that data being generated by everything jet engines to motor cars. How do you see integrating things like those in-car apps, for instance, into the back end that you've got?
Well, interestingly, today Toyota is talking about their Link system they built for their 2014, I can't remember the car model, but they've got a new Link system. They use Mule in the background to do that.
Oh, okay, right.
So if you can stick around later today, you should go and see that.
Right.
But I don't think we're ready for the amount of data that these devices are really starting to build up. We've got a lot of companies, energy companies, that have connected their smart grid metering systems to back-end systems. And honestly, I'll say, I won't name names, but most of them delete almost all the data.
Right.
Because the cost of storing that much data without doing anything with it is fairly high. So I think big data is very much in this realm of we're still figuring out the right questions to ask.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, there are some insights occurring, but that's an evolutionary process. And we're not going to help with that piece of the equation. What we help is make sure that you get the data reliably and we plug it into the right places as you need it in real time.
Yeah. Now, where do you see the software industry going? Because when I look at products like yours, they seem to take a lot of that grunt work that a lot of IT consultants, project managers, and so on were doing, of tying that AS400 system into a PeopleSoft, that sort of thing. Where do you see all of that going? Do you see it all being automated?
I see us getting a lot better at composing systems together versus doing a lot of heavy lifting to make them work together. And I see APIs as really the catalyst of that hyperconnectivity, being able to connect things together with well-defined interfaces.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's so important is I think APIs are really starting to drive a different type of economy. And what's been calling the API economy is really just the sum of digital transactions between entities. And APIs are a very good catalyst for connecting two entities together that maybe didn't have a relationship before.
Right.
I actually, if I go a bit beyond that, I think what's really happening is the business as we know it is really changing to think more around what are their digital assets and their traditional assets, and how do they combine the two into new channels to engage consumers, partners, suppliers, you name it, in different ways.
Yeah.
And I think the IT fabric to enable that is extremely important.
Right. Yeah. So your own journey, I mean, you've come from an IT background yourself. How did you find it going from, I think it was financial services, into running your own business? That's quite a change.
I'd love to say that it was all smooth. It really wasn't. But it's been pretty exciting because a lot of things have happened. I mean, one, I went from solving a specific problem to solving a generic problem. Okay. And that was a great exercise in product management and strategy. Now I actually spend a lot more time on the front end of understanding how to sell this, understand the needs of our customers, deciphering that into a product vision and strategy. So in the last 10 years I've managed to move around lots of different areas, and for me it's all part of the excitement and the journey of creating a startup that you hope will be successful, and this one has been. Yeah.
So where do you see Mulesoft being in 5 years' time?
So it's a good question. We're really gunning after really owning, in my mind, how people connect systems together.
Yeah.
So, and the reason we want to own that piece, whereas other people have never really wanted to own it, they just used it, said it was a necessary evil, is I do believe people and organisations will be defined by the way they connect the systems together and the way they open up these APIs or these channels to engage with a broader community around their products.
Yeah.
I want us to be right in the middle there, with people looking back and saying, Mulesoft really solved that problem, why would I ever connect with anyone else?
Right, yeah. Do you find it a very competitive space, that connect or integrated space?
It's competitive, but it's interesting because the market has rotated so much. It's not fully, it's not really that well captured. Right. So there's traditional vendors such as Oracle, IBM, TIBCO. Yeah. They don't cater for these new use cases. They haven't thought about SaaS integration and what that means, or integrating lots of apps. You've got to think about back then when they were created, they were solving very much an on-premise, big legacy problem. Yeah. And they do it very well, but it's only part of the problem now. Now, if you're connecting SaaS and on-premise, that's a different type of proposition. If you need to create channels for mobile devices, that's a different proposition. Right. And those platforms weren't built to do that. Yeah. We also compete in other areas on data integration with Informatica, for example. And again, they're very good at what they do, but they don't really consider the whole problem because just the market has rotated so much. Yeah. So I think we're one of the few vendors that are really looking at not just serving the problems of yesterday and today, but also the things you need to solve very quickly tomorrow. Right.
So to conclude, what would be your advice to a young developer who's looking at setting up their own business today?
That's a good one. I mean, if you're passionate enough about the idea and it keeps you up every night and awake every night, right, go and try it. The worst that can happen, you can fail. It's not the end of the world. And the other thing I found was just absolute tenacity of belief that what you're doing is the right thing to do. Yeah. And once you lose that, you may as well stop, because at that point, there's nothing going to wake you up in the morning to get you going. Sure. To get to that point where you might have some success.
Yeah. On that, Ross, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining Decoding the New Economy.